That being 5:31 p.m., I'd like to start open the meeting of the Water Sewer Commissions. Tuesday, January 25th. I know this is awkward, but I'd like to be consistent with the pledge. Everyone rise to the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yep.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the
United States of America, and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation,
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight, and thank you for coming out to our meeting. First, we'll start off with Superintendents Updates. You good, Frank?
Yeah. It's kind of long-winded. I'm going to summarize a little bit of this here so we can stay on track. Going to kick back to 2 weeks ago. We started dealing with some of the coldest weather temperatures we've seen in just around 3 years. John was able to get a public reminder out via Norton alerts to ask people to take necessary precautions to keep the water pipes and water meters from freezing. It appears most people did heed the warning. We did get a few calls and respond to a few locations to help a few people out who were not familiar with dealing with these temperatures, fairly new to town. We did still respond to multiple calls for frozen pipes, broken pipes, as well as the fire department. They responded to a few frozen and broken and flowing fire sprinkler lines in town. Thankfully, none of the flows created any major disturbances in any of the areas that we had to actually go out and flush, during the single-digit weather. Last week, we had companies scheduled to perform their required sprinkler flow tests. The actual flow portions of those were canceled. They did their electronic testing, and they asked for a waiver to kick off the actual flows until weather is a little bit on their side. So we'll get back to the Old Colony Road and West Main Street areas for actual flows later on, and updates will be posted on the website, even though they did remain just in case we had a last minute change in the weather. Wheaton College is actually one of those locations.
That's yearly, right? That's the yearly test. Okay.
Yeah, correct. They do actually. Wheaton is twice a year, Steve. Sorry. Each location is different based on the fire suppression systems they have. So we flowed Wheaton College last, I believe it was June, and they would do again coming up now. It had been pushed off for a little bit. They had some repairs and work that they had to do. Unfortunately, they picked one of the coldest weeks to try and perform close to 50 tests with the amount of buildings, including on and off campus. They have 48 to 50 sprinkle flows that they do there. So it was posted, anticipated that we'd see some disturbances from that. Thankfully, it has been pushed off. They did do a few flows there today, taking advantage of the change in the weather, with temperatures dropping back down the way it's anticipated, and with the event coming in this weekend, most likely we won't see them finish their flow events. So again, at some point in time, we will be inundated with people trying to clean up what they've been forced to postpone. Hopefully, maybe a few months from now when it's a little warmer out. I think, as I mentioned, in part of we had anticipated some unfortunate happenings with the Wheaton College flows. Thankfully, it didn't happen. We did have a couple instances where we were asked to respond, and thankfully there were no flows. There were actual alarms that were triggered for flow events, and it was basically due to failure because of cold. So we've been pretty lucky with everything that's going on. Knock on wood. We'll talk about the other event coming up real soon. So service leaks and some frozen pipes were actually first noticed by the guys in the water treatment facility. We're so tight on water, as I've mentioned many times before, that they were able to notice changes in actual run times at the water treatment facility and the 2 remaining wells, indicating additional usage, which is uncommon this time of year. So we actually spent quite a bit of the cold weather weeks out investigating some of our abandoned properties and those areas that are prone to freezing and failures in the past. Our foreman actually found one of the locations was a vacant home down off Cobb Street. It was something that we had on the radar for a while. It's actually a home that's going to be taken over by the town, or was just taken over by the town. So utilities were still remaining on at that location. Of course, for whatever reason, the heat went out, and we suffered the damage on the water side there. That was a substantial leak. We actually spent a little bit of time, did a repair in the driveway to get the shut-off valve repaired, and the next day we noticed a change in run times just by repairing that one leak. Unfortunately, it wasn't back to normal, so we did remain out, did some more investigation, scouring the town and attempt to find, what we believe was a second small leak. Unfortunately, to no luck, no avail. I guess that might be a good thing until Monday morning at 5:20 in the morning, when we found what we didn't want to find was East Hydrants Street had opened up. This is an 8-inch main. We've been down there a couple times in the past. I don't recall the total number of times. I'm thinking we could be in the 3 to 4 range here in the past 5 years, which unfortunately is not uncommon once you have a failure of a pipe in one area. You're piecemealing together, you're changing different types of pipe. So now you put a ductile iron pipe, or you have an AC pipe, or you have a cast iron pipe. Even though you have good bedding, you're packing it down, you still have differences in soil from being excavated. Chances of those happening again, especially with cold weather, freezing conditions, frost, are all prone to future events.
Now, Frank, if you don't mind, that main, is that on our docket to replace at some point, or we'd be talking about that sooner than later?
Yes and yes. It was in the back of our 20-year master plan. It was definitely nothing near the top of our scope. And we recently, Tara and I had moved that up after, I believe it was the second or third break we started talking about it, and actually have a cost based on the length. It is at least a year to 2 years old. We're talking about 2,150 linear feet, and I think it was going to come out to pretty close to $750,000. Again, pre-COVID market, so we could be in the $1 million range, or maybe it holds true.
You even get the pipe.
Yeah, exactly.
It's something we do need to address. It is something that Tara and I actually started working on, and we're looking to see if we can roll that into the remaining money that we have coming from the county. So there's funding that's coming to Norton from the county.
The ARPA money?
What's that?
Is that the ARPA money?
There's so many different avenues. We could call it ARPA just to have a title on it. It's separate from the county money. There's county funds, there's ARPA funds, there's 1 or 2 other funding sources, all which have specific criteria in order for certain projects to fit under them. Our South Worcester Street has some of the oldest pipe in town. It also has random lead goosenecks and iron pipe water services. So that is on the top of our list. That is being pushed forward for the federal funding. And what we're looking to do is roll this smaller section in, because it's basically in the same quadrant of town, even though the streets don't physically connect. And that would most likely use up the last of our remaining monies from the county. There could still be funds available from the ARPA for other things. Tara and I are trying to really come together with a real tight number on what we could have, because obviously we want to make sure that we're under the allowable money that we have approved by the town manager. And if changes need to be made, we're also trying to secure 2 emergency generators from that same funding. So it would be easier if we had to pull the emergency generators out and put that to a request for retained earnings to fund. So there's a little bit of movement going on, to bring this up to the top or second in line as far as projects go. Steve, as you know, once you secure your weakest area, you're going to find another one. We don't have the availability to go out and replace all of the pipes in town, similar material and similar age. We've had areas in town, unfortunately, that do become the weak link. And this has become the new weak link in this area. All of Dean Street has the same type of pipe, same age, as well as portions of West Hodges, even though we only go up to Colonial Drive. So, you know, it is a small pipe sandwiched between two larger pipes there. There is a significant amount of work that will actually have to be done also in the intersection of Dean and East and West Hodges. So many years ago, when Colonial Drive was put in off of West Hodges, they extended the water main down one side of Dean Street to make sure there was enough water to supply that development. And when they did so, they left future expansion valves, but did not create a loop in the intersection there. So when this area is affected and we do have to isolate it, it also puts out the end of Dean Street from Hodges to Rehoboth. So, you know, it's not, you know, it's obviously it's a major intersection. You know, the amount of work that would have to be done there would be well coordinated, but it will be involved. So that 750,000 or ballpark number that it has definitely could be increased by having to add the restructuring of that intersection. So it is something that's in the works. It's definitely something that you know, has not been forgotten about. You know, we take note of these problem areas, and you know, unfortunately, it's not the only one in town. But you know, the specific criteria that we have to follow based on the federal funding, you know, the lead remediation definitely puts South Worcester Street as a priority. This street here, based on age, has similar pipe, but to the best of our knowledge, does not have lead goosenecks or iron pipe services. It's just slightly newer than what we see on South Worcester. I know Tara is going to speak to this a little bit later on. So we'll jump back to Dean Street. So that call came in 5:20 Monday morning. Multiple technicians responded. The on-call technician actually was concerned. He was driving in and the road conditions weren't so great. But we actually called ahead. He asked our foreman who lives in town and myself to respond, as we had most likely a quicker response time. The foreman actually beat me here. He was on site. He called in a couple of our water treatment facility techs who had already noticed the change and drop in the tanks and adjusted the levels accordingly. So they were available to come basically scour this area. At the time, it wasn't known what was going on, other than the fact that we had low water pressure and no water calls coming in for Dean Street. You know, the assumption was obviously made, you know, most likely it was the same area that we had been to, you know, what it was 8 months ago, whatever it turns out to be. The response obviously was slowed down by the icy conditions that were created by the break and by the road conditions that they were dealing with at the time. But regardless, it was shut down relatively quick. Because the frost was in the ground, there was minimal damage to the road surface. There was some mud and debris that obviously ran down the road, dropped off into a few neighboring backyards that we'll obviously deal with when the weather improves, and will be handled. There were some questions about the operational procedures that were in place from a couple of residents. A couple of people had complained that they weren't notified quickly. So just to explain a basic idea of what goes on, you know, when a call comes in, it goes to either SIMRAC or it goes to our dispatch service, and the on-call technician is the first person that gets that call. He immediately begins responding. If he, in this case, thinks he's further away than somebody else, he will call ahead, as has been directed either to myself, to the foreman, or whoever else he knows is in town, to facilitate the quickest response time possible. And you know, once the first person's on scene, they obviously have control of the scene, notify, you know, police details. In this case, we also notified the highway department to request a road sander to be brought in. Once the area that's affected is isolated, you know, that person or persons will begin, you know, calling DigSafe, and in this case also have to notify National Grid using the SIMRAC dispatch center, because we had to request a pole truck to be brought in to hold a utility pole that was adjacent to where the break was. This pole had a transformer and the three-phase power lines on it, so it was definitely something we weren't going to mess around with until that was done. So all of that was going on at the same time. We had requested John to respond. and he was able to come in, get a report out onto the media channels and to Norton Alerts. That's about the fastest response we can provide for notification. All efforts are focused on stopping the break, stopping any additional damage that's going on, and handling the emergency at hand, not getting notification out to the residents. I know that's important for a lot of people.
Were these people that were, sorry, Frank, were these people that that had voiced concern, are they on Norton Alerts or no?
I do not know. These calls were taken by the office. I responded to a couple who had left a voicemail with no return call. I explained this again by voicemail to these people, that there is a procedure that goes on, and I also explained most times, more often than not, I'm part of the responding party, and I'm also part of the repair crew. You know, we're a very small department, limited technicians. It's just kind of the way it works. If I'm on the phone on site, it's usually calling Big Safe, calling the police, calling in the highway department, you know, or calling in another member of our staff. It's not to you know, try and send an email or a text out to notify people what we're doing until the situation's been controlled.
Well, it came out early. I have to say, I got it early, and I got the alerts. That's how I found out about it, and then of course Facebook as well. But I thought, you know, kudos to you guys in the middle of an emergency like that, to get the word out pretty quickly for people. I think that's really kind of the best we can do. If these people are on, hopefully these people will get on Norton Alerts and they'll get that message when, you know, when and if this happens again. Hopefully that's the case.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it's there for. We did notice when we did make it back to the shop here, John was here handling some of the calls that were coming in while he was actually putting out the notice to Norton Alerts. The phone was continuously ringing while he's doing that. Once the notice was out, you could notice a drastic decline in the actual calls that came to the office.
Yeah.
For the girls getting here and taking over. So it does indicate that it does work. There must be quite a few people that are signed up for it. And as long as, you know, they pick and choose the correct selections, they won't be bothered by nuisance calls outside of what they want to know about.
Because Frank advised me of this, I actually signed up today, so I'm the newbie.
Welcome aboard, Steve.
Thank you.
It's baby steps, brother.
Yep. I'm getting there. I'm on the steep learning curve.
So obviously the pipe failure, you know, created a massive change in normal direction and definitely in the flow volume. We've received calls throughout the day. Those calls were logged. We actually handled this a little bit differently than we have in the past. Instead of responding to individual calls, we logged the calls that were generated from it, and we actually did what we consider as a systematic flushing instead of random responses based on call locations. Knowing that it happened fairly early in the morning, some people weren't going to notice this right away. Some people were. Some people may not notice it because it may not have affected their area immediately. So what we did, we actually were able to use one of our water treatment technicians who's experienced with the town, who has flushed for a number of years. And we actually had him in the system, and we went systematically. We started off where the first calls we knew they were going to come in was the Pine Street area that we deal with multiple times whenever there's a change in direction. We have a blended flow there from the water treatment facility and from our well one. So starting on Pine Street, they ended up moving water and had to choose specific hydrants based on locations of where the water could remain out of the road, which was a challenge all on its own. So we actually flushed quite a bit of water in strategic locations, and you know, it was you know, kudos to the guys that were out there keeping the water out of the roads and out of people's yards. You know, with the frost, it was a challenge.
Yeah.
And we didn't do every hydrant. We had to be very cautious about what we did and where we put the water. Sometimes running multiple lengths of hose that you know, would freeze when you left them in the truck by the time you get to the next location you needed them. So it was a challenge all in itself. But for a short list of the roads that were flushed, basically we started on started on Pine, down Crane, Thornton Ave, Eddy Street, Woodward Street, portions of Southwest, John Stott Boulevard, Tucker, Billy Myers Way, Brahma Drive, East Hodges, and Dean Street to the public line. As residents woke up or returned later in the day, we did receive calls from similar areas that we had already flushed. These people were experiencing a slug of dirty water that was either pulled in from their first throw they had in the morning prior to leaving for the day, or when they came home, they started using water and were dealing with, seeing the slug that was created by the incident, but it wasn't representative of what was in the distribution system. They were instructed to flush their cold water, multiple faucets at once if they had the capability of doing that, to remove the sediment that was in their line and not in the distribution system. And on wood, each and every person did not call back, indicating that the flushing, leapfrogging of hydrants to scour the roads, not specifically addressing each individual address, actually did work. And water was restored right around 2 p.m. that day. Definitely took a little bit longer than we would have liked, but with the weather conditions and everything else that was going on, definitely not a horrible turnaround on the repair. We had 2 people that remained on site and actually continued flushing and finished the end of Dean Street right around dinner time. That one took a little bit longer to do because there's an elevation in the pipe there. So we deal with air and train it down there whenever there's a shut off in areas that have elevation changes. So that one, the water was clear, but we still had some air in there that we wanted to get out. So they ran that one a little bit longer and made sure that that was the best it possibly could be before they ended up going home. But so this morning we actually worked with the highway department, went down, excavated, cut that road out, actually cut a portion of the customer's driveway that was also affected, and we ended up getting some pavement binder down in the trench, so that obviously it'll be secured for the weekend, knowing that there's a potential storm coming. And we do anticipate that trench will settle. We're going to continue to monitor it as weather changes. We'll either fill it in, or if we have to cut it out and pave it again, we'll do that. But in the situation, we just didn't have a normal time that we'd like to see it settle and go into place. So that's about all I got. That's really worth saying too much about. If you guys have any questions, I'll gladly answer them.
Very good report.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you, Frank.
Okay, kudos. That's not fun. Really one. Yep. Not a fun thing to do.
Yeah, I got your number. I was going to call you in.
Yeah. I was up. All right. Thanks. Thanks, Frank.
You're welcome.
And at this time, we don't have the people from 196, correct?
You are correct. They could not make tonight's meeting. They apologized, and we'll
That's
get
okay.
back.
We can reschedule them? Okay.
We will.
Do we have any discussion on that at all? Anyone have any questions on that? Or we can certainly discuss it later as well. Emma, Steve?
Steve, actually, I wouldn't mind a clarification on specifically what they're asking, because there's a rather large sum of money that is owed to the town. And not sure exactly. I know they want to go forward with the project before they pay, but I don't know any of the specifics about that.
Yeah, so Paul DiGiuseppe, the Director of Planning and Economic Development in town, actually spoke earlier today with legal counsel. So there are provisions in a few of the statutes that she was able to find that would allow the board to do some type of payment agreement.
Okay.
Based on, if you wanted to allow, maybe 50% up front and then two increments, or if you want to do it 3 or 4, whatever you wanted to come up with, as an agreement. It is something that's outside of the norm, and they want, I guess, a little bit of security on their side to know that, they can move forward with their building, with their permits and application process prior to putting this money up front. Now, that is different from what's been done and what's been required in the past. So that would be something that the board would have to feel comfortable with. I believe there could be a legal document drafted that would cover all of this. Ultimately, we have final control over the water. But if it means, losing the project that's going to benefit the town, I would think it'd be in everybody's best interest to look at finding a solution to the problem, not just putting a stop to it. Paul wasn't able to join tonight. He definitely has a few more things he wants to speak about, showing the positives for this project, and I can definitely see all of it. It is a huge amount of money that is owed to the town. It's unfortunate the circumstances that happened, talking about 9/11, where building just didn't recover from that. Property owner is not saying that he doesn't owe the money, but he's just looking for an amendable change to the rules in this one particular parcel so that he can obviously, come out of it without putting the money up front.
So he's not contesting the money. He's just contesting to do it differently so he can afford his project.
Yes.
That's in basic terms. I mean, we've been without the money for how long now?
Yeah.
I think that it'd be prudent for, at least in my opinion, to come some sort of agreement that's amicable for everybody involved, so they can get going and start this and make sure that we're covered. I'm sure legal would have to get involved in this. It's not a normal thing that we do in town, but right. I think it is something that I think we can work with. In my opinion, I think we can work with contractor and people. What is exactly going there? Is it just one building, or is it more?
No, it's proposed as a one building multi-function use or something of a similar term. So it's not designated as a specific property. I don't believe it's residential. I believe it is going to be some type of commercial facility. But I think they're leaving their options open by putting it down as multi-use. I'm sure when they come in, we can get all the, as many details from them as possible.
Okay.
I know Paul and I have spoken a lot behind the scenes about this. And, it would be a huge benefit to the town. Obviously, we've been sitting on this, or holding this water availability for them for, a very, very long period of time. It would make sense to move forward with it, provided we have security from legal on it.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'd be fine working some kind of payment arrangement like that. The only thing that concerns me, I guess, is this floating due date. If it keeps getting kicked down, it keeps accumulating more money. So if we do some kind of an agreement, it would be nice if part of that was an upfront portion of that monies. As a good faith approach into that agreement, I guess.
No, it makes perfect sense. Yeah. Any documents I get from legal or from Paul, I'll forward to you guys so you can be up to speed on that. I may have something sitting in my inbox now. I stepped away from the office for a little bit, but definitely prior to the next meeting when we have them in, we'll make sure that all the documents are in everybody's hands so we are all on the same page for what's being presented before us.
All right, good.
All right.
Good. My only concern with that is that I just like to know. I know they can't tell us, so they're not sure what's going to go in there. I just want to know what kind of water they're going to use.
Mm-hmm.
Because of our situation, it's always in the back of my mind of, extending our system out even further.
Right.
We're going to be able to handle it, as it were. So that's just something in the back of my mind, not knowing exactly what they're going to use and if they're going to need a lot of water. It's going to be a weed plant or something like where they're going to grow it, where they need an incredible amount of water. I've already seen that in Mansfield. So
yeah, there's a few facilities in town that definitely use a lot more than was anticipated when they first come to us. There's actually a pallet and tote washing company that's in the Leonard Street Industrial Park, and they use an incredible amount of water there. I'm very surprised that they don't have some type of recycle system in place. That could change after they see a few bills come through. But as of right now, they definitely turn that meter pretty quick.
Wow. Okay. Any other discussion on 196 Mansfield? All right, moving along. Mike Tooley, you on? He's on live with us, right? I think I saw him up there.
Yeah.
Mr. Toole here is the Select Board's Vice Chair. He's here to discuss about proposed DPW article.
All right, Steve, do you mind if I share my screen?
Please do, Mike. Thank you.
I wanted to thank you all for having me on tonight. This was an idea that has been in the work for myself, trying to get it together and propose, working with people to try to propose it, as well as some members of the water department, and obviously this board. Steve was able to join us in the last meeting. And the proposal that I want to bring to town meeting is the proposal of a Norton Department of Public Works. And what I'll do is I'll walk you through the proposal and ask for frequently asked, review frequently asked questions, and just open up for discussion.
Good.
And can you see my screen? Can you all see my screen? Or
Yes, I got it.
Yeah.
so the amendment goal is to create with the Norton Public Works Department by placing the Norton Highway Department and the Norton Water Department under one umbrella, with the sole purpose of finding employee expense and equipment savings and synergies while opening the opportunity to expand additional town service. In addition, hire an engineer as the director of both departments who will oversee town projects. The working committee that we have in place, and I say working committee, is not we've had two meetings that we there's been a lot of work prior to the two meetings, but two meetings where I pulled people together to try to get feedback and so forth, included Michelle Brown, Mike Units, town manager, Keith Silver with the highway department, John Harrop, myself, Frank and Steve. And Frank and Steve were at the last meeting, not on the last meeting. And then our next meeting is still to be determined, and so forth. So we'll probably be within the next probably few weeks that we'll get that going. What we're proposing is an organizational chart, as you can see here, is the director of public works, and underneath them is the superintendents of the water and sewer director of public works, and then the two superintendents underneath them, and then the water sewer commission, moving from an elected position to an appointed position, and that would be, but the roles of the water and sewer commission would remain the same. As one of the things that we're looking here is I wanted to kind of walk through the current select board appointments, of which there are some very important ones. The Board of Health, the Conservation Commission, the Zoning Board of Appeals. I wanted to highlight those three because the select board does not interfere with any of those committees regarding that. And the goal of this proposal has nothing to do with the interfering with the work that the Water and Sewer Commission does. It truly is an effort to kind of expand services, hire a town engineer under one umbrella. And the approval process to make this happen requires both a bylaw change and a charter change, which require first approval at town meeting and then approval of town election. So let me go through the questions, and then we can open it up for discussions. Why is the article being proposed? An effort to find cost savings with employees, capital equipment, and hire a supervisor engineer to see town projects and review. How will the engineer be paid? This will be a combination between the town budget and the enterprise account. Does this eliminate the water commission? No. It changes the role. Is it more, and I've actually wanted to change that. I wrote these up and so forth. I don't see this changing the water commission's role at all. Not even, I have an advisory role there. That's what you do is more than an advisory role. And I want to make sure that gets changed within there. I apologize. That one got by me, and I apologize. Does the water enterprise account remain intact? Yes. And that's one of the major reasons why we need this water and sewer commission to stay intact and manage that. Does it eliminate the water department or the highway department? No, there are two departments under the Department of Public Works. And I do recognize the licensing within each department and so forth, and the requirements within that. And do other towns have public works? Yes, most towns have a version of public works. Some have water departments in them, some don't. Some have conservation. There's actually a couple that have conservation within it. I originally had thought about possibly trying to put that into this proposal, and I was it was shut down pretty quickly that was probably not a good idea, and I could understand the reason why. The elected water commission is better. Since 2011, there's been consistent open seat, fluctuating with joint appointments by the water commission. So I don't see, we've had a lot of appointments, a lot of vacancies within this board. I actually see it remaining that way. Meaning not remaining open, but I see it actually being more consistent. We're able to, there are a lot of people that enjoy the appointment process because we actually see people churn out a lot more when there's an appointment process versus running for an election, not just for this seat, but other seats in town. Would this change the role of the Water Sewer Commission? No, the Water Sewer Commission's responsibilities would not change. There it is. I thought I changed it and I didn't see it in the first slide and I apologize. One of those boards serves the capacity, as I mentioned, Board of Health, the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Conservation Commission. So just as, I know that I've kind of flown through this at a very quick pace. I want to kind of open it up to the group and, we've seen proposals like this before. And I wanted to really stress that this is not this, I think they're coming from a different place than where I was, where they came before, where there was this anger and rage towards the Water and Sewer Commission. That's not what this proposal is about. This proposal is in an effort to find synergies between the two departments, specifically in projects that are labor-based. I can tell you right now, but I was actually surprised that Frank didn't call me. If we do another meeting on another day, I know what the water department went through yesterday, and it was a tax. It was a tax on the whole department and the staff and so forth, and they handled it great. This is purely an effort to bring more consistency to your board, an effort to find through an appointment process, not an election process, more just so it's just kind of a consistent appointment process. To find synergies within labor, capital equipment, and so forth in there. And then most importantly to me is try to find ways to expand services to the town. And I think we can do that within a public works department. And then the last would be the hiring of an engineer, which I think this town is in a capital improvement phase right now. And this department, your department, as I know, you guys have a Herculean task of determining which pipes need to be replaced in town. And I know you have a strategy and you have a master plan. The goal would be to have an engineer, not to put stamps on things, not to replace Weston and Sampson, but to actually possibly maybe bring a higher level of just review on some of these projects that may be required. So with that being said, come at me, boys. Come at me. I say that jokingly. It's tough because this proposal traditionally has always been an attack on this board. So I get it where when you see a proposal to kind of put it to public, that you interpret it as an attack. It's not. This is where the salesman stops talking and then opens up the floor.
Steve, you mind if I start?
Sure.
Thank you, sir. So, as you know, we've had our discussions back and forth, Mike, about this in previous meetings. Definitely don't discount the need for a town engineer for certain projects. The concern here would be what has happened here in the past. Not to pat myself on the back in any way. We've had some pretty good people sitting in this chair prior to myself. Unfortunately, they didn't have Norton experience. By myself starting off here, over 20 years ago, starting from the bottom, moving my way up, I've been in every single aspect that all of our employees are now. I've seen the good, the bad, and everything that's been done in between. How is it, bringing in an engineer with even some Norton experience going to trump, again, not to pat myself on the back, the 20 plus years experience I have, knowing the needs and deficiencies that need to be worked on, that myself and the commission have set in place in the past 3 years or whatever it's been, you know, it's going to be, they're going to be in an advisory role. So even anything they say doesn't mean it's going to be moved forward. Anything I say doesn't mean it's going to be moved forward. It's going to be whatever that engineer is led to believe is most important. You know, that's concerning to me. To me, that's taking a step back to where we were to the person sitting in my seat prior to myself. The only reason, honestly, I took this position definitely wasn't for the money. I was making more money, working hourly, working the crazy overtime that I was before I took this seat. It was to improve the deficiencies that I've had to deal with, you know, throughout my 20 years of being here. And they were in place because others wouldn't listen to the employees telling them what those deficiencies were, whether it be in the sewer department or the water department. Every aspect of the repairs that we have going on now, from the Cobb Street station to the 2 new wells that are being put in place, are things that we've had to deal with and we've had to make work, you know, that shouldn't have, you know, lasted as long as they do now. You know, I know we're not going to get somebody with experience coming into Norton, you know, similar to myself or the current highway superintendent, Keith Silver. You know, you can't pass that type of knowledge along. It's only experience based. So there's definitely concerns there. You know, my other concern, as I mentioned to you before, is changing the board from elected to appointed. You know, the board has done some miraculous things and has made some very difficult decisions. You know, as you have pointed out before, we always have a target on our back. It's been that way. It's probably never going to change. And it's because there's difficult decisions made by myself, made by the board, and made by previous people on the board and in the seat of what's best for the town, not what's best for the individual, especially if it goes back to a 7-member panel who may make the popular vote and avoid the difficult decisions that need to be made. You know, so there's definitely some concerns, and I won't get into it, you know, too much. The other issue I know you had mentioned, and your biggest selling point, was a cost savings to the town. Adding an engineer or engineers, if there has to be an assistant, maybe a secretary, we're talking at least a 6-figure salary, if not, you know, a 6-figure, and maybe, you know, an assistant position as well. That's for the life of this person's position. You know, most of the expense will come from the Water and Sewer Commission based on the size that we are, based on the fact that we're enterprise and the amount of work that we do in town. You know, we also have to look at the retirement costs. You know, I just don't see the benefits to bringing in that position when we could hire it out if there are specific projects that we need a secondary engineer on. And, you know, as far as the blending of the current staff that we have now, it's confusing to understand what we first talked about in a meeting, saying that we're going to have a blend of the departments, and then you see a little bit further down in your display that the separation is going to remain and stay the way it is. So if we have our staff work outside of their normal prospective places, it's going to affect how quickly they are licensed, something I touched on before. The Division of Professional Licensures requires our staff who are currently operators in training to work specific amount of hours in their respective divisions, and that has to be certified by the superintendent or by the assistant superintendent in a letter when they go for review before the board to increase their license to an in-full status. I know John is on here, he can attest to this. By being honest and putting in the correct amount of time that you serve in each department, it adds years to the time that you can get your license in full, which obviously adds years to when you're fully able to work independently in our systems, whether it be water treatment, or sewer. So there's many negatives that I see on our side and many positives that I can see for the other towns' departments to gain from this. I don't know if there's any clarity that can come from this. I know this is still in the baby stages right now, for lack of better words, but there's definitely some major concerns as far as staffing goes. On our part, we have a lot of senior members that are here who, if this change happens and if it is going to be the same as it is in other towns and other DPWs that we've spoken with, they're forced to plow. If they have a CDL, they're put in a big truck. They're called out to sand. They're put in general rotation. You know, putting those people in a position that they're not comfortable with jeopardizes them staying with this town or with this department. Something that we already have a staffing shortage. We definitely can't handle anything else. Just my 2 cents. I know I've heard it all before. I don't know if the other board members have heard my spiel. I'm definitely not opposed to the situation, but I think there needs to be a lot more clarity in there. And if you feel or the town feels that we should have an engineering department, I can understand that happening. I can understand funding being required to come from our departments to pay for the services that are provided. Still don't get the reason for changing the board from elected to appointed. It still appears on its face as a target, whether it gets intended that way or not. Sorry, guys, I'm done.
You address a couple of things here before. Right, you gave me a lot to unpack here. If I can just.
I'm sorry, Mike.
Kind of this, a couple of things. You would be part of the recruitment point or the committee that would look to hire the. I would almost insist on that. So when I received Keith Silver, so I would expect you to be the ones that were looking and basically in the interviewing process of that engineer. The purpose of that engineer is to review certain projects. So we're not putting undue pressures or so forth on board members like we maybe have done in the past that aren't engineers. Granted, I know Steve Bishop's worked in the water department, worked in the water departments before for years. He knows more about water than I could, than I would probably ever know. But, it takes a lot of pressure off someone that's an elected member of this board to make these decisions, like in previous, where it was increased on a project that was increased, but it was a 50-50 chance. Do they dig the boring holes or do they not? And it's not fair to me. This is not my comment. It doesn't come as an attack on this individual. He wasn't an engineer, right? And maybe an engineer would maybe made the same exact decision, or maybe the engineer wouldn't have. But the decision was made, and I think that would help. A couple of things: the appointments versus the elected. I think it would bring consistency to this board. That because we've seen this, people just don't even run for the seat. I would encourage you to look at the Conservation Commission. Select Board does not interfere with them. I encourage you to look at the Board of Health. The Select Board does not interfere. They appoint them and they do their business, especially now during COVID. That Board of Health has made decisions, binding decisions, that the Select Board cannot interfere with. We've got protections for this Water and Sewer Commission within our bylaw. Changing them from an appointed to an elected does not change that. Does not change their responsibility. Right? I'm not changing their responsibilities, what they see, what they do, what those items. I am recommending, and I'm going to say it with respect. You can't say that this board is being consistent in elections. You just can't say. You can't say that it has been. And I, with all respect to Steve, Jim, and Steve, you guys are doing an amazing job. The Water Commission, this is not an attack on the Water and Sewer Commission. This is not an effort of this. I can't say that enough. Okay? And just one last thing. You're right. There are going to be specialties in each department. These departments will work on their own. And you will be on a recruitment committee that will basically, a search committee that will hire a supervisor to see this. The highway department I think in your last contract, you added a laborer's position into that, right? I'm not like, this is where we might be able to find savings. I'm not saying that we're going to take away someone's specialist. We don't necessarily, may not have them now, but you probably could have used extra hands, and he probably stepped up and tried to help with the project yesterday and so forth. But we might be able to make a day like yesterday easier by having one public works department. I think those are the three things that were the concerns. Do I believe that this is a way that I'm going to have access to the enterprise account? No, there are safeguards within the legislation and so forth that doesn't allow that to happen. Do I believe there may be cost savings in items like Mechanics, capital equipment. Yeah, I do. I do think there's going to be cost savings there. And I would rather use that to try to expand service. Frank, did that touch all the points that you were, I mean, you may not just agree with me, but did I at least touch all the points that you had brought concerns about?
You did touch them all. I appreciate it.
Steve, this is Jim. Can I chime in on this?
Hey, Jim.
Okay, first, Michael, I want to thank you for coming in tonight. I was watching your meeting last Wednesday, but it's nice to have you come in and be able to have a little back and forth and hear a little bit more about this. I wasn't obviously in on any of the two meetings you had about this previously. I actually have some notes that I wanted to go ask you some questions on some of the frequently asked questions. So I'd ask the board to bear with me a little bit. Some of these have been answered already, and I'm trying to maybe skip over on them. But so on the question of how will the engineer be paid for, this will be a combination of the town budget and the enterprise account. Just to touch on what Frank had talked about this engineer. Actually, my first question on that is on the little flow chart you have Director of Public Works. Is that the same position? The engineer, is that the Director of Public Works? Okay, so that's not two different positions. It's the same. Okay.
With a supervisor as the director and the engineer as the director.
Okay, that was just confusing for me. Thank you. And I could imagine you probably wouldn't want a secretary or staff or something, and you're looking at his salary, you're looking at benefits and retirement and all those. So that's one significant cost that I think we can all agree on that's being added. I don't know if the savings that we would get from this, if it could possibly be quantified at this point to see whether it would match that or not. But I'm guessing it probably doesn't. Anyway, moving on. Does this eliminate the Water Sewer Commission? No, the changes to the role of an advisory board.
And that's a mistake. Please, that question, I've addressed it.
Yeah, you talked about changing it from an advisory board. I guess I'm a little unclear on that as far as, okay, so would the select board or would the Water Commission appointed one be signing the bills and making rate decisions and all that? I guess I'm a little confused on what the responsibilities and the authority of this new board would actually be as compared to what it is now. And you're saying it's not changing at all?
My goal is not to have you, I have to go through it with a fine-tooth comb. My goal is not to change your responsibilities. You know, can I say like, okay, the rate change is absolutely not, no, I just have to make sure that it's within the right to do that. But yes, my goal is not to take rate changes away from you. My goal is not to do review of bills, strategy within long-term effects projects and so forth on this. It'd be very similar to the Conservation Commission. The select board is not in the day-to-day running of the Board of Health, the Conservation Commission, and you know, somebody, if the select board is doing their job, we couldn't handle it. We just couldn't handle it.
I agree. There needs to be a board. It is too much work for the select board to be. In fact, Mike Units pointed that out at your meeting last Wednesday.
That's right.
That very thing.
And then leads to the question of why is it appointed, right? Do I just keep it elected? Well, you can't have it, you know, one of the criticism I do have is this board for years, not just 1 year, 2 years, but the last 10 years, not been consistent to maintain elected interest. Okay. I appreciate the 3 members that are on here now because you guys are doing an amazing job. When we see openings for appointed, we see applications come in a lot easier versus election. Right? That's a major component. Right?
I actually have a comment about that in a minute, but I want to go on a couple other things. Again, just please bear with me. I'm going through my notes here. I'm not going to, Frank, I think, did a pretty good explanation of as far as the grading up and the licensure and how that would make that take a little bit longer. So I won't really talk about that. On the, let's see, the public work director engineer sounds like a waste of money. We already have an engineer. one of the things you said that you would reference the West Main Street project, where they ran into some kind of a ledge and something had to be changed in the design. And I guess I'm wondering, if we had this extra engineer, how would that have actually changed the outcome of that? The same thing would have had to have happened. So I guess that just speaks towards having the other eye on it. We have so many eyes on things already, and Weston and Sampson does such a good job. I guess it just goes back towards where I'm not sure that the added expense of another engineer is necessary. I guess if you're going to combine it into one department, you need somebody to run that department as a whole. Maybe that's what you're thinking too. I don't know. But if I could just move on from that for a second. You talked about other towns that have public works. Most towns have a version of the public works department. Of those towns that have versions of public works department, are they all appointed bodies? Or do some of them have this water, sewer, highway, everything comes into one, but still have an elected body for water, sewer?
Most are appointed. The ones that have a water sewer commission, you have different models, right? You have some that the select board are the water commissioners. You have some that have a body, but they're appointed. There are very few where it's kind of independently elected.
Okay. Well, with that, I'll just end with my comment about that, about elected versus appointed. One of the things you guys said at the meeting, which I kind of felt I almost wanted to chime in and I didn't, and I probably should have, when Mike pointed out that he actually said nobody on the current board is elected, they've all been appointed, and you agreed with that. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I certainly know I was elected, and I know Steve was elected, albeit by a write-in, but regardless, that's irrelevant to the subject. And Steve Bernstein, who was appointed recently, was appointed within a week. He had his paperwork filed to be on the ballot. He didn't want to wait until April. My point is this, Mike, that right now you have a board with 3 people, qualified people on it, who on their own came forward and wanted to serve on this position. So the argument about past history of it, nobody ever wants to be on this board. I think you have 3 people on this board right now that want to stay on this board for the foreseeable future and would potentially keep running for re-election. And all 3 of us, this is something that, Steve, we didn't go recruiting Mr. Bernstein. He came to us. He decided on his own. So I just don't think the lack of participation thing has an argument to why it needs to be appointed. I don't think that may have applied in the past, but this board currently, this is a new board of, like I said, people that want to do this and want to do it to represent the people of Norton, wanted to be in an elected position. And I just think, I think the people in Norton will probably want to keep it that way. I know I want to keep it that way. As far as if it did become appointed, and I guess is another question I have for you. I was reading something that was sent to me in an email, and it was the sitting members of the board would stay on until the end of their term, at which time the select board would appoint someone else. Is that correct?
I'm sorry. Say that one more time.
See if I can find
Yeah, we'd sit on the board. They'd finish their term, and then they would be reappointed, or they could go for reappointment.
Right. So I guess my question is, if this went into effect, say now, I would have 2 more years left of my term. What's to stop you guys from 2 years from now just saying, thanks, Jim, see you, bye, and we're going to put our own guy in?
If I gave you any answer to say that couldn't happen, I'd be lying to you. But this is what I would also say to you. The chair of the ZBA, 20 years in. The chair of the Conservation Commission, 12 years in. You look at the appointed position, the select board doesn't kick people out that are volunteering. So to say that we're just going to come in and clean slate, no. I can tell you right now, if the 3 of you came in front of me, I know myself, I would fight to keep all 3 of you on. I am so angry. If you're getting the impression that this is a critique on the work that the current Water and Sewer Commission is doing, do you think this is my critique of that? I apologize. It's not. And it's not, it's not my it's not my intention to offend you or to try to just kick you guys off. That's not it. But there is a history here, and this board has had trouble maintaining elected positions. We've always been able to find someone appointed, and we were able then they maybe ran, but then they may resign, and then we basically will go empty for a bit, and then we've had it's actually, if you look at the history of let's just say let's take the last in 2011, this board has been inconsistent, and please don't take it as
You know why?
who you are. It is not a reflection of who you are.
I'm not actually trying to be combative with you, Mike. Just I want to put that out there.
And I don't mean to be combative. If I
I know.
I apologize. It's not my intention. So with that being said, that's kind of where I see it. So.
I have something to say. So, being a registered professional engineer, by the way, I'm not going after the position. I make that statement now to be a town engineer. It's not my intent. Maybe 25 years ago it would have been, but not at this moment in time. So, in my experience, that DPW directors and town engineers are usually two distinct jobs. Normally, the DPW is more political on his duties and responsibilities and answers to the selectmen or whomever, whereas normally the town engineer is really more down to earth and non-political and basically just does engineering. A little nerdy, but that's who we are. But anyways, I deal with a lot of cities and towns, and I really can't think of a city and town that has a DPW director / engineer. And I have found that they're really two distinct roles.
So it might make sense that this would eventually evolve into two positions that we would hire.
I would think so. And then the other thing is, when I was in Randolph as a elected town water commissioner, I did that for 6 years. And the 6th year, they formed a DPW in Randolph, with the distinction that the DPW became the water and sewer, highway, tree warden, and cemetery, if I'm not mistaken. So all the former commissions got dissolved, and they created a 5-member elected commissioners to fall under the DPW range. So it's a little different model than what is being proposed here. By the way, I ran for that position. 15 people ran for that position, and I came in 6th. Just thought I'd tell you that in case you wonder. So the night of the election, I lost the seat of being on a water commission.
And Randolph is town meeting style government like us?
They were at the time, but now they're town council.
Oh, okay.
And that evolved several years later. So different form of government, a bigger community. I just thought I'd throw that out there just to kind of like information. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, just so you know, and I apologize to do this, and I should have let you know before, I've got a hard stop in about 10 minutes. I apologize. And today is usually one of those days where I have my children. I have my children on Mondays and Tuesdays, and so I apologize. I'm welcome to come back. I'm more willing to come back and so forth if we need to continue the discussion.
Mike, we definitely appreciate it. I just want to chime in just a little bit on. I know you keep on comparing the water commission with the other commissions, but I have to be honest with you. The water commission is not the most desired commission to be on in this town. I mean, people wouldn't have a problem being on the conservation commission for the last 20 years or whatever, which is great, wonderful. Before this water plant came on, you had to fight and scratch and to dig and find people that wanted to be involved because we get brutalized. Now things are getting to be much better. They're not perfect, and they probably won't be for a heck of a long time. But boy, we're on a great track with a great staff and everything like that. That's kind of where I'm coming from with this, with the appointed versus the elected thing too, because I don't think that you're going to attract any more people appointed wise than you would elected wise. Again, this is just my opinion, and I know that, and I feel as though that you're pretty honest, and we'd have your support going forward if this did go forward, and I think we'd have you in our corner, and we definitely appreciate that. I can probably speak for the other two as well. We appreciate your honesty and you come forth and pretty transparent. We appreciate that. So that's really all I had to say about that.
Thank you, Steve. And this is one of the things that, as this is a change, and Jim and Steve, do I think the town should hire an engineer? Absolutely. Do I think, but we have to find the way that Norton is and the structure that we have to work. We have to work within kind of a developmental of what we have. We are about to build a town hall. We are about to build a senior center, a community center. The projects that you guys are working on, you are absolutely right. Weston and Sampson has done an amazing job with us. The more engineering eyes, and Steve Bernstein, by the way, we were so excited to hear that you were an engineer. We were like, yes, an engineer. Right, Judy? We were very excited about it. This is one of the things we even though Weston Sampson represents us, the town is overdue for an engineer, and the development that we have, this is the proposal that I have, and I do believe ultimately I want to expand services. I do. And I think this is a way to move to it. Not only, I know that there's concern, like, how do you save money? You do save. I think one of the things that if we were able to figure out, if this engineer was able to say, do something different on West Main Street, and that may have saved us $1 million. Right? Maybe not. I don't know. I can tell you this right now. As a voter of this town, I would have felt more comfortable if the town engineer said, this was something that we gambled on and we lost. If an engineer said that.
Mike, I have something to say very quickly. So as like Frank, a former, union employee of the town, I think it's important to point out, firstly, when I first heard about the DPW, I was kind of very staunchly against it. Mike, what you've said, I do take a lot of what you say at face value. I do believe that you want the board to retain their influence. I'm happy about that. You have conned a lot of my concerns. A concern I still have, though, is that just speaking for myself, I know that I came to the town and I specifically took a job in the water department and not in the highway department. And I know that the plan is to keep everything separate and different, but I know that I have spoken to several employees who have zero, and when I say zero, I don't mean a little, I mean zero interest in plowing snow and working in snowstorms and working in windstorms. And they came to this job with a certain job description. And I don't feel that it's right or fair to make people who have already been here. If you want to say, well, people who are hired in the future have to do this, that's one thing. And I don't feel that that is something that it is fair to the employees of the department, especially people who have been here a long time. I mean, just speaking for myself, I know I'm not in the union, but I have no interest in plowing snow, I never have. I don't want to get called at 6 a.m. Christmas morning when there's 10 inches of snow on the ground and say, hey, it's an emergency, you got to go on a plow truck and snow. It doesn't interest me. And I mean, it's just, the guys who are in the department have to be on their own on-call rotation. And I know you've addressed this. I know you said that the departments are going to be separate for the most part. There are going to be specialized jobs, but I don't see forcing people to do jobs that they didn't originally sign on to do. I think is something we need to be careful of, if not only for the sake of being fair. And that's all I have to say.
So this is one of the things that I think is very important here. In this past, first of all, town meeting and a vote. We don't go in there and just turn on the lights and all of a sudden this happens, right? This is not one of those, anybody who thinks that it's like, okay, it passed, it now is new. No. There's a transition, and there's absolutely, with that being said, there's going to be specialties of licensing requirements, and we will cross that. I've worked with Mike Units now for 2 years, specifically seeing him negotiate contracts and work with unions and that end. When I tell you and I've done it professionally, negotiating contracts, he's one of the best I've seen at negotiating labor contracts. He really is. He's really, really, really good. Okay. Sean, and with that being said, do I want to make people do something they don't want to do? No. But are there times where, it's, you got to do what you got to do, right? I mean, and I'm not saying that to be that, I don't want to be the hard arm just forcing people to do something they don't want to do, but jobs change, projects change, and these are things that we have to we have to be mindful of, and we have to work with the unions, and we have to make sure that we're not going to just have a mass exodus of the water department, a mass exodus of the highway department. These are things that, we've got to make sure that we're not going to have that. It's going to be a transition. It's not, if anyone thinks this is an overnight walk in, turn on the lights, and, oh, look, it's the new Department of Public Works. Something, I need to control that expectation now. That is not going to happen. So, I mean, one of the things that Mike and I have a meeting with is Lee over in Mansfield. And the reason with this is I really need to get understanding what the challenges is. He's the one who actually created the Public Works Department over in Mansfield. I need to get an understanding of what are we really facing. Okay? And anybody who knows Lee knows that he doesn't hold any punches. He's going to tell us. He's going to tell us the good, the bad, the ugly. So, and so that's, I hear what you're saying, John. I'm not going to say everyone is going to be like, put up their hand and say, oh, this happened. There's going to be some people that aren't going to like the change. There are going to be people that do like the change. But we have to kind of see what's best for both departments, best for the town. And like I said, and the Water and Sewer Commission is going to be part of that. So I hope that answers your question, John.
No, it did. I just wanted to get my piece out there, Mike. That's all. I just wanted it, that's just a concern I have.
And just so you know, it's probably as I walk through logistics operation side of this, the human aspect of it is probably the most difficult to address, right? Because these are people's livelihoods, right? I mean, these are people's, but something, it doesn't mean that we don't try to improve things, we don't try to adjust it. We have to make sure that we keep the risk low and that the transition is smooth to help these people. So, like I said, nobody likes change, but we have to propose change, and that's how we're going to move forward. I think that's how we're going to move forward. I see this change one of the best. I think this is an instrumental change for our town. And we've got a new town hall. We got a lot of new infrastructure. I see the Department of Public Works changing the way this town works. I really do. That's how I see this as a vision. And I know it's hard seeing my vision, but when I truly, truly believe that this will be able to find savings, extend additional services. I think the water department is going to be able to find more support on big projects on so forth, when necessary, and so forth. So. Okay.
Mike, real quick, I know you said you have to go. When you say additional services, are you talking like trash collection, stuff along that lines, like farther out?
Yeah. It's funny. Could I say trash collections? Yeah.
I just mean as an example. I'm not trying to tie you down.
Let's focus on trash collections. I picture it much larger than that. I think that it's up to the department to kind of say, oh, we can extend by this. I would love to see my vision for the town is, over near where you guys are, that extra land over on the Worcester Street area, I'd see a transfer station if possible to put in there. Have extended services to actually offer trash pickup. I counted the other day. We have 10 to 12 different disposal companies picking up, tearing up the roads in this town, and it doesn't make sense. It doesn't. And the average cost is about $140 a month. It doesn't make any sense. So
no, I understand you here definitely on that. That's why I asked about it. I just was curious.
This is not the world of Michael Toole. So, we've got a lot of work to do here, and I really want to thank you guys, the commission and the water department, because you guys are doing an amazing job. This is not, my proposal is not an attack on you or the department as other changes like this that have been proposed or personal attack on you. That's not it. I want to work with you, and I'm hoping to put you all at ease. One of the things that I will take out of this meeting is I will review the responsibilities of the Water Commission and go through them and make sure specifically what stays, what goes, if nothing changes, with the goal of nothing changing. So that you have my commitment from this meeting, I will do that, and I will bring that back.
Thank you.
Hi, Mike.
Mike, one real quick question. Would this go to town meeting first or ballot first?
We always, on initiatives like this, it would be town meeting, because the town meeting has to approve to put it on the ballot. So
Okay, so if it potentially was at town meeting this spring, since that's after April, would there be a special election on it, or would it wait till the following April?
to be honest with you, I haven't even asked Mike Units.
Okay.
I'm assuming it would be a regular election.
Okay.
I think that's a mismanagement of money and so forth. So my recommendation would be just keep it on the normal.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Thanks for coming in, Mike. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Mike, thank you so much. We know you gotta go, and we definitely appreciate coming down. And you're
Thank you,
welcome
Mike.
anytime.
Yeah, and please do reach out if you have concerns and so forth. This won't be the last time we meet, and I'm at this board kind of talking about this stuff. You guys are part of the process, and I need to make sure that I'm including you. I actually now, in doing this, I should actually talk to people, not a commission, it's people, because they kind of the feedback. And I'm probably going to go in there and just say this is what I'm proposing, and so forth. Because, like I said, I think the human aspect is important. So,
Great.
thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike. Have a good
Thanks.
night.
Thanks, Mike.
All right. Moving right along. We'll go to Sampson and Weston. And Steve, you want to start us off, or Tara? Whoever wants to thumb wrestle first.
I can start. You just said my name.
Steve wants to go.
Thanks, Steve.
Excellent. So a couple of things to report real quickly. I guess the Turtle Crossing peer review, we did put together a scope and are working with the developer to get that executed so that we can do that review directly through the director. And I worked a little bit with Frank on that just to make sure the scope was consistent with what he was looking for in our review. So we're moving that forward.
Can I ask something, Steve, about that review? Did you guys review the water availability too? Because I'm sure it's a hell of a lot different. Excuse my French, but it's a lot different than what it was when they first proposed this project. So are we still able to supply them what they need to build?
But my scope does not include water. It was just about the issues with mostly with the Norwood pump station and the lack of ability for that to handle what it's currently seeing and what you guys really need to do going forward to handle it.
Okay.
So on the water side, it doesn't include anything in this scope.
Okay.
On Norwood and Holly Road, we got the contract. Frank worked with James and the town hall to get the contract executed. And Frank, you were talking earlier about the ARPA money or the county money. And based on our meeting the other day with Mike Units, I know Tara has she's put together an application for the Worcester Street, I think, water main stuff. And we were going to put one together and I will put one together for Norwood and Holly, but it sounds like it's still a little bit of a moving target what you're going to do with those monies. Is that and we'll get you the forms for both of those projects, but it sounds like, you might be looking for you might be looking to add some other stuff onto the one that Tara is. Is that correct?
Right. If we don't round the numbers up, there is enough money to be covered for everything. Typically, finance committee and everything that goes through the town, the number is always rounded up to the next whole number. If we do that, then we do exceed the money that Mike has told us is allotted to us from the county. So Tara and I were throwing some numbers around, seeing where we would come out if we put in the actual numbers. And, there was still some more discussion that needs to be had about that. But I think if we get the paperwork in place, once we come up with that final number, I'll be able to, move that up the chain as necessary.
Okay. All right, so we'll move forward with the paperwork that Mike is looking for, and he can do with whatever you guys end up doing with it. It's up to you.
Okay.
So the EDC has asked you guys to come in and talk about the sewer plan that was going to be tonight. That's got bumped out to, like February 8th at this point.
February 9th.
The
February
night,
9th.
the night, yeah.
Okay, which is fine. Nothing really to report on that, but I had sent a suggested quick little PowerPoint presentation. It sounds like they just want to be updated on the comprehensive wastewater management plan and which areas, which areas are currently sewered and which areas are planned for future sewer. So we should talk more about the PowerPoint before we present anything to them on the 9th. It would be a good idea. So we can talk about that offline, Frank, or take a look at that. And if we want to get with Steve or with more of the commission, we can do that. So there's that. So at the last meeting, the betterment abatement request, you guys, so that's a done issue in terms of you guys voted on that, but there was a request for some financial information. We forwarded a memo that we had prepared that kind of summarized all the financial data, and I think answers the question or the intent of the request. And Frank, I think at this point you were gonna there has to be a formal public records request, and you were working on that with the town clerk on how to accomplish that with these people. And once they make a formal request, I think you have what you need to forward on, unless we need any more discussion on that. I think you have what you need.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I sent them an email request. I spoke with the town clerk. Typically, that'd be something that would be done in person at town hall. It is a public records request. I have permission from the town clerk to ask for a response via email. Once I have that, I can send that to the town clerk for approval, and then we can electronically share the information.
Perfect.
Have we heard from them in the past 2 weeks since they met with us?
I have not.
Okay. I'm just wondering if they're trying to expedite that at all.
So Frank, you said you already emailed them?
That is correct. I sent an email off today. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So that's moving along. I think that's pretty much it. I still owe and we're wrapping up a scope for that municipal complex sewer connection options that I want to get to you, Frank, to look at. And this is one that again, the town manager asked for a proposal, with the money, not coming out of water and sewer for this contract, is my understanding, to help them figure out what their options are, to try and figure out the best way to get a sewer connection for that complex consistent with your plans, with the sewer department's plan.
Were we looking at more than one option, or Steve?
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, that's what the proposal will be, to look at. I mean, there's sewers in several different locations, whether it be, the sewers that were just installed, and other existing sewers. So there's definitely different options. The costs are going to vary quite a bit for those options. So I think that's it. Oh, I know, Frank, you got that email from Mass DOT on the manhole on Taunton Ave that the plow guy apparently has issues with. So we did some digging. I found the old, I'll send you the information back and forth that we had with Mass DOT about when we did the final work out there and their final sign off on what we did.
Okay. I just think it'd be good information to put along in the email to them, possibly also with what they gave us the choices to repair the other manholes that weren't quite at grade for the last section of final pave that was done. I don't recall if that was infrared and additional mix that was added or what was done there.
Yep, that is pretty much what was done. That is what was done, I think, on the ones that were determined to be a little bit off grade. So, and like I said, just interesting that in the second snow season, this one doesn't look any different than it was when we did the final paving a year and a half ago in the spring of 2020, but this year they had an issue with it. So, but we'll deal with that. So on that, I think that's it on the sewer side, unless you guys have any other questions.
Actually, I have a quick question. I'm not sure if you were privileged to sit in on the EPA meeting, Zoom, that was today, talking about the wastewater treatment facility general permits. So we're, as you know, a co-permitting with MFN, and there's multiple coming down with additional sampling, and it wasn't a very clear meeting. A lot of questions were kind of brushed over. I don't know if they didn't have the answers or didn't want to make specific answers known. As I said, they'd reach out to most people individually. Is there something that we should be concerned about, knowing, we don't treat the wastewater. All we are is a collection system. We move the wastewater to the MFN. We pay a substantial amount currently to the MFN. With the meeting that was today and with your previous experience, do collection systems have to do additional rounds of sampling to prove to the host community what they're providing when it comes in as a blended system? Basically, if our system for some reason has high levels of aluminum in it, they would have to treat for that at the final process, but it would make sense that they would want to know where it's coming from and adjust the bills accordingly based on specific samples that are taken. I might be reading into it a little bit too much, but I can see a huge change in monies to the MFN coming down the road.
Yeah. So I didn't personally sit on the call today. I know we had people from our wastewater treatment team that sat in on it and will be reporting back to us, so I'll get some information on that. I mean, anything is possible. I mean, everything you just said makes sense, so if there are, if the treatment plant is going to be held accountable for certain sampling, and they need to make, costly repairs or anything to their system, I'm sure they're going to want to know why and where it's coming from and where those costs need to be allocated.
Right. The reason I kind of point that out is that we have improvement projects going on at Cobb Street, and that's basically the heart of our system. If something needs to be changed or if additional, sampling sites need to be added, so now would be the time to look at that moving forward. So that's I'm being proactive. I'm looking forward, but I may be looking into it too much.
Yeah. It's always a good idea to be looking at stuff when you hear of those things.
Frank, if you're invited to another one of those meetings, one, you asked me to, if I can, I'll be on the call and maybe I'll be able to help you interpret all that stuff.
I would appreciate it, Steve.
And I know, Frank, you also got an email about the sewer system overflow reporting procedures that are coming out. And we're definitely going, so they're having a seminar at the beginning of February that we're going to attend. I don't know how significant, I don't think it's going to hit you guys significantly, and I don't think the plan that needs to be developed is really just for, reporting to the public. And I think it's for, sewer overflows, if there's a problem at a station that's over 1 MGD, I think it's 1 MGD is the cutoff where you have to have a plan in place for SSOs anyway to deal with it, but for the public reporting, it would only be stations of that size, so it would only be stations like Cobb Street, potentially. But we'll get more information on that. We're looking into that for all of our clients, as far as what they need to be compliant. It's July 1st is when you have to have the plan in place. So.
All right. Excellent. Anything else, Steve?
I think I'm good.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
All right.
Tara? DJ Tara?
Hello. All right. So some water information here. So met with Frank last Thursday to discuss with him, John, and also the water department, White Street water main improvements. Got some really good information on some historical repair work that was done and where some of the services actually are. So we're wrapping up that design, hopefully have that ready to go for review by the water department in the next 3 weeks or so, and then turn it right around and get out to bid so we can put it on the street and see what kind of pricing we're going to get for the 2022. It's a relatively small project. It's basically relocating the water main on White Street to go down East Main Street instead, and then up Newland, kind of get rid of some of the old AC pipe, which will be great. And there's some parallel mains pretty much from Newland all the way down to Burt Street area, which that old AC is kind of an offline, but it'll be fully abandoned under this project too. So that'll be a nice improvement. So there's no services on the older mains, and they'll be transferred over. Good bang for the buck on that one. As far as the federal funding, so Frank and I have been working on this. Been anywhere between 1 million and 3 million from the town manager on exactly how much county funds will be coming from to Norton and what can be used for water and sewer. So we've got the South Main Street project, which is basically going to be from the Barrow Street area to the Parker Court area. That's estimated to be 1.942 million. So what Frank was thinking for, if we round that up to 2 million, we lose a little bit of cash flow there. And then the other project would be we were talking about East Hodges from Dean to Myers Way, which we estimate to be about 745,500. Again, if you round that up to 750 or so, you lose a little bit to change there. So keeping the numbers where they are, we feel pretty comfortable. The capital plan had some cash in there, some contingency to cover when we actually move forward with design and construction. So we'll see where we're at with bidding over the next year or two, the price of ductile going up and whatnot. But overall, feel pretty good about putting a project together as a combined project if the funds are available to go through that. So we'll provide Frank with some documentation to provide to the town manager with just South Worcester alone, and then with South Worcester with East Hodges is included in that project. So wells 1 and 4, we finished all of the test well drilling. We have water quality sample back for the one well over at 4, all below the MCL for iron and manganese. Obviously, it's going to the treatment plant anyway, so we weren't too concerned about the water quality. It was more making sure it's in reasonable parameters, but also the flow. So we're just waiting to kind of follow up with a report to that, and we can present that to commission and to the water department review. Well, one area we've finished that. We don't have water quality samples back yet for that, but that at least was completed even with the weather. So we do have all of that information. We were able to do a pumping test, a 4-hour pumping test on one of the wells out there as well. So again, in the next few weeks, we'll have a write-up, and we can kind of set up possibly an informational session to just discuss some of the technical data and see where you want to go from there. So that's the good news is the weather didn't push things off too bad on that. The real big news was kind of saved it best for last. We did have a bid opening last Thursday for the replacement wells 5 and 6. Came in a little bit under what we had advertised the project for. The apparent low bidder is Dankerous, which we had 2 bidders, and they were just under $600,000, so they came in at $598,600. So good numbers there, and we're looking through the documents right now, doing reference checks, hoping to have a recommendation to award by early next week or so. Once we just check everything out, make sure they've provided the correct information. But overall, that was we were a little nervous with just kind of where the construction budgets are with multiple projects right now. But it was relatively competitive, at least for their low bid. So we're looking forward to working with them, and we've worked with them in the past. And I know that the current driller is familiar with them as well as the water department. So that was all good news on that end.
What was the name of that company, Tara?
Dankerous, Dankris. Yeah.
Dankerous, yeah. They've done a lot of work for us. They're a good company.
Good.
They've done several well replacement projects in the last year. A couple. We've worked with them about 2.5 years ago. They finished out a replacement job of ours too. So.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Tara,
Go ahead.
You mentioned water main replacements on White Street and Newland Street.
Mm-hmm.
What's the extent of that project, feet wise?
About 1,100.
And that goes from White and East Main Street through up to the next intersection, or what is that?
It
You know how far that goes?
Yeah, let me just look up a map here because I always forget what that tiny little substrate is here.
Yeah, White Street is probably, I don't know, 500 feet long.
Yeah, it's not very
300 feet long. 300 feet long. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna start in front of the Kelly's Place restaurant and pick up on the 12-inch ductile iron main that was there. It's connected with a T going into Red Mill Village. The goal would be to turn that T 90 degrees and continue running down approximately in the fog line on East Main Street. And then there would be a 3-way T connection made in the grass area over near the Bernie and Phil sign, just for a landmark. And
Yeah.
that would connect into the existing water main that remains on Newland Street. The project that Steve Peterson was talking about, the Turtle Crossings, as part of the water improvements there, we had recommended that originally they were going to replace the water main down on Newland Street up to the intersection of Newcomb. Because of the changes in the infrastructure there, we would request that they replace that all the way to this new connection that we're going to leave at 123 and remove all of that AC pipe that's along that area.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you very much.
And it's Hastings Way, so I always forget that side street there. So it's basically from Hastings Way to the intersection of Newland and East Main. And then there's some patchwork to abandon the existing parallel mains on Newland.
So what's the status of the design of that?
I'd say it's about 75%. We're just got some information from Frank, so we can finalize the plans, and then we'll work on the spec work and put quantities and get it ready for bid.
And those are normally submitted to Frank and to the commission for review. Is that correct?
We usually send them to the water department, and I believe that the commissioners are certainly more than willing to, if they want to look at them, they're available. So we'll be sending a set of plans. Yep.
I can't wait. Thank you.
super large project, but definitely need multiple engineers on that one. So we'll look forward to everybody's feedback though.
All right, Tara, thanks. Are you good, or you got more?
I think that was pretty much it on my list. So unless there's other questions about any other projects.
If I can jump in for a second, just to bring you guys up to speed, the temporary well 5A is in place. We did our portion of connecting the water main to the valve that we had left, which was previously determined to be a wonderful idea. Knowing that we may run into the situation that we did, the work was done in the field by Frank Sullivan, installing the pump, the pitless adapter. He is going to return with a T assembly, So we have the option to flush the waste off the connected water main. It's kind of a mongrel the way it's been made, but it will work. That'll allow us a flushing point when we turn the temporary well on after chlorination, and we'll have a way of actually draining it down so we're not dealing with, freezing temperatures, damaging anything while we wait for the sample results. So that is in the process. Our electrician has been out to site, has made a list of everything he needs to order. We are actually just waiting on the electrician now. Chances are we won't see him this week. If we do, that'd be great, and we're ready to go. We're going to dig the trenches and install the conduit. We're going to install the conduit in a way that's hopefully conducive with the final build, so it doesn't have to be done again.
Yeah.
We'll have some pole lines through there so they can feed the new lines through the permanent lines. We're going to do everything we possibly can to, help out with the final construction portion of it. There will be a temporary fence constructed around this temporary well, and we will have we purchased some concrete heating blankets that you put down for curing. We've used them in other locations that we had concerns about pipes being exposed to freezing temperatures. So for all intents and purposes, we're going to make a tent, and we can have an oil-filled heater under it if we have to worry about shutting it down. The goal is here that once it starts, we're not going to shut it off unless it's absolutely necessary. So the flowing water will have no issues of freezing. I know we do need to get Jim McLaughlin down there to do a site walk or inspection. If he is available, he was requested to do that. But we'll have multiple pictures available to show him in case he is tied up and cannot make it. We'll go from there.
And on our end, the only thing that remains is pretty much once all the work's done and we have the water quality results, we'll put together a certification letter that everything's been installed and request a DEP inspection from Jim's office. And then the next step would just be his issuance of an approval to place the source online.
Good. Good. Yeah. All right, Tara, thank you, by the way.
Sure, no problem.
Anyone else have anything? Actually, I'd like to bring something up. That Frankie, we had talked about those black hydrants. We get a couple of those in town. Want to talk about that? Update the board a little bit on that hydrants and the concerns of some of the residents and communities that we have.
Yeah, I don't have anything on it, so I'm going to go off the cuff with this. I don't remember the amount of streets we have in town. I would say there's probably 4 or 5 that would come to mind where many, many years ago, we're talking somewhere in the 20-year range, either the fire chief or the planning board or a combination of both required new developments to install dry water mains in their developments for approval. Fran may remember this as far as timing goes. With provisions to be discussed for connections later. I don't recall if it was a water availability issue similar to what we had what we're dealing with for 196 Mansfield Ave, where we didn't have the water available, and this is something that was going to be looked at in the future, or if it was just a requirement that they wanted the provisions to be in place before the development was done. That's definitely before my time, and there's been some concern. It started probably back in 2019 with a phone call generated to the office. A resident who actually wanted to paint a fire hydrant that was across from her property that she had been looking at for a number of years, and assumed that the paint was flaking off and that there was black primer underneath. Once it was determined the location, she was informed that there is no water in that hydrant, and the hydrant is facing backwards from the street, so that wouldn't be mistaken for an active hydrant, and it was actually painted black because there is no water feeding that. That was the indication that, so the fire department personnel, if they responded, would know it's not something that they would waste time hooking up to. Again, the names of the developments or the side streets in me right now, I believe Fuller Drive is one of them. There's definitely a couple more in town. Over the years, many of these hydrants have accidentally been picked off by snowplows because they didn't have hydrant markers, they weren't flagged out, and it was very easy to break them off at a breakaway coupling, which would be at or below grade, easily filled in with some dirt. You mow over it, you never knew it was there. For the few that remain, it still leaves the question, and many people that have moved into those neighborhoods or built, additional homes in these neighborhoods were under the impression that they had fire protection there, and the developments that we're talking about are actually all on private wells. So there is no other indication, that they would have any connection to the water and sewer department. Some of these homes are multi-million-dollar homes. They're beautiful. Some of them are average residences, and their concern obviously is that they were almost duped into thinking that these developments that they moved into or built in, had these type of protections in place. And now they're coming back. They're speaking with the planning board. They've spoken with us a little bit about what can be done to liven those names up. There is nothing in our regulations that would allow anything like that. I mean, we're talking, even if it was a couple years, the biggest hang up that I have is there were no inspections that were done when these pipes were installed. There's no guarantee that it met standards then or now. Even if they were hermetically sealed, you're still going to have issues with condensation, with, you're going to have, turbofuels. It's going to look like the Titanic inside that water main.
And they've been sitting down there for how long, Frank? Sorry.
At least 20 years.
20 years, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we're
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah. There were never any taps done to the water main adjacent to these streets. So again, there's a huge cost that would have been on the developer at the time. There is just no way that I'm going to put my name on it and say, sure, let's connect these people. It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
I don't know how the string of events happened, but we're here to provide drinking water. Fire safety and fire hydrants and water that comes from it is an additional benefit to having a distribution system, but it's not the primary focus.
Should we look into removing the remaining black fire hydrants?
Well, I had thought of that myself. The issue is many of these roads are not town accepted. So now we're going to be going private property and removing a part of an infrastructure that was installed as part of a development. We don't want to become liable or be, pointed at for removing something, even if it's not usable. I'm not sure what the next step would be. I mean, I have no problems going out and painting these hydrants black again so that there is no concern with, there is no water there, but, it doesn't solve the problem. And until somebody can provide me, a better solution, we have, our hands are tied. I mean, we sample, as you guys know, in parts per billion and parts per trillion.
Yeah.
We've been thinking about turning on something, of that nature, no way.
And I think going forward with the fire department already knows that these hydrants are not on. So that's one of the most important things.
Yeah.
And with these being private developments, I would assume they have some sort of association. So I think it would be incumbent on them to make the move to either, I don't even know how to approach this. I mean, we don't know what kind of material that they used, if it's even acceptable.
Well, that could be easily checked out by, putting a camera down there and figuring that all test bits or something that way. I mean, it's possible that you could actually utilize the lines by slip lining it or whatever, but that can be easily rectified. Somebody has to pay for it though, and can obviously hire somebody to do it. So, Weston Sampson could easily, do that, or any other engineering company could figure that all out, assuming they, somebody has, either they have mapped it or they would have to map it and then investigate it. And like everything else us engineers do, you study it, come up with different options and figure out how to pay for it.
Right, but I
You're
think
not figuring the town doesn't have to pay for it, but somebody has to pay for it.
That's what I'm getting at. They must have some sort of association that's
They'd have to hire an engineer to take care of the type of stuff that I do. But
well, the town's going to have an engineer pretty soon, so
no problem. It's something the town engineer would easily do, except it's not on private property, obviously. Very funny. LOL.
But I understand. I get that. There is ways with the infrastructure and stuff like that. But like Frank said, I'm just a little leery about the product, what they put in. Obviously,
Well, you couldn't
and
just
bacteria.
You couldn't just right.
Yep.
It wouldn't. It would never. It's like a cross connection, and it wouldn't be allowed. Period. Nobody would allow you to use it without it being either systematically investigated, pigged out, if you know that expression.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Cleaned out. Maybe have to be re-cemented. Who knows what they would have to do?
Yeah.
But you'd have to prove that the system is spotless before you could actually tie into it. Period.
Yep.
There's no exception to the rule.
Yep. So there's a possibility, but it wouldn't be incumbent on the town to do that work, which is probably going to be expensive. But I just wanted to bring that to light because we talked about it today, and just in case it came to your plate, you have a little better idea what's going on.
Yeah, thanks. I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, I thought I've heard it all.
Yeah, we figured this was a done deal because we hadn't heard of anything. Come to find out, it appears the concerns were just put on hold due to COVID. So it has come back around again. And like I said, there are a few other streets in town. The names escape me now. I can get the list of them for you guys. But, in the least, we can go out, weather permitting, and paint these hydrants black, or at least inspect them. Again, it is a private way. I'm sure that, the fire department would back us for painting these hydrants black, so that some of their new staff are aware, that they are not active if some of the paint has flaked off, which most likely has happened.
Or bag them out of service.
True. Yeah. I mean, we've had unfortunate luck with
Yeah.
the bags end up disappearing. And, for the few kids that do make their way through town, they do target the bags and the hydrant bags.
No.
We do have those rings we could put on as well, Frank, the out of service rings. We had not exactly sure where they ended up, but we do have some.
The frisbees, yes.
Ones that go on the front porch. Yeah. All right. Well, does anyone else have anything else they would like to bring up, or any questions, concerns?
I do.
Sorry. So that's the end of the meeting. No, just kidding. Go.
I was told by our great secretary Janice that you guys need to approve minutes because they have
I
been
was just going to bring that up.
not approved.
There's 2 meetings worth that we got to approve, right?
I believe so.
Do you have, or Brooke, do you have what the actual dates were? So I word this right?
Don't have those in front of me, no.
All right, I guess I can look back on the calendar here.
Steve, I wanted to say January 5th, and I can't remember what.
It would have been the 4th.
Oh,
Nope.
4th.
Actually, no, our last meeting would have been the 11th.
We met on January 11th and January 25th, guys.
Today is the 25th.
Well, that's when we're meeting.
What about the joint meeting? I believe there were still minutes taken for that.
Yep, there were.
Yeah, January 5th.
And then, so January 5th was the joint meeting,
Correct.
and then January 11th was our meeting, and those are the only 2?
Correct.
No, yes.
Okay. I'll go ahead and do this then. I move to approve the minutes of the January 5th joint meeting of the Water Sewer Commission and the Select Board.
Do I have a second?
Well, I don't believe I can second it because I wasn't a member of that meeting.
I
Is that
second
correct
that.
or not?
Oh, that's true.
Okay.
That's a good
Right,
point.
that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, Jim and myself.
Okay.
But you were at the 11th one, correct, Steve?
That one I can second. That one
All
I
right,
can
we'll
second.
go with that then.
Okay, all right.
I move to. We ready?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I move to approve the minutes of the January 11th meeting of the Board of Water Sewer Commissioners.
I have
I
a second.
second.
No, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, very good.
I
Thank you.
think we're up to date on that now, right? Our
If those
minutes?
dates are correct, we should be.
Yeah, okay, excellent.
The new dates for the next meetings, I believe, if I'm correct, it's February 8th.
Yeah,
And the
looks like Tuesday the 8th.
That, okay with everybody?
Yep, works for me.
Yeah, that's fine.
So the 8th and 22nd, yeah.
If there's any other business that we'd like to discuss before we leave?
I don't have any.
Great, well, yeah,
Okay, I move to adjourn this evening's meeting.
I second.
all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Have a great one, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Fran, good to see
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.